Here I was, blaming AEW for feeding you chicken shit, knowing you mindless millennials would be eating it up as if it were chicken salad, when it's really been your fault all along.
Make chicken salad out of chicken shit. People is as people does, that's all there is to it. Put a square peg in a round hole, just never seems to fit. And you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Hello and welcome to Making Chicken Salad, the Wrestle Radio Australia podcast where we talk about everything that's going on around the world of wrestling. I'm Lachlan Albert. I'm here as always with Todd Eastman. Todd, long time no see, mate.
Hello, my friend. How are we? It's been a while.
It's been a while, and look, it's been a while of a lot of wrestling news coming through the pipeline. So if we want to get any of this chipped away at, we're going to jump straight into it. Now we're going to start with a big one. Obviously, there's a bit of a trigger warning here about potential sexual assault. So skip ahead if you don't want those discussions. Of course, we're going to be talking about Vince McMahon here. So the former chief executive, Vince McMahon, has been revealed to have paid more than $12 million to 4 different women to cover up, quote, allegations of sexual misconduct and infidelity, according to a Wall Street Journal report. The women, all of whom were involved with WWE, signed agreements with McMahon that, quote, prohibit them from discussing potential legal claims against or their relationships with the 76-year-old executive. The report of the hush money, which the Journal said was paid over the course of 16 years, is the latest part of a corporate firestorm for McMahon. Last year, there was another report from a journal saying the company's board was investigating McMahon for agreeing to pay a secret $3 million settlement to a former employee with whom he allegedly had an affair, and that woman is among the 4 mentioned. So she accounts for $3 million, 3 other women accounting for $9 million there.
So it's basically a $3 million charge each time.
Each time. And there's some variance there. Some are being paid more, some are being paid less. Another interesting factor here is if we look at that first $3 million one, that accompanies for the hush money portion of it, the signing of the contract that says you can't talk about it. On top of that, while she was at the company, her pay was doubled while she was working there after this relationship with Vince started. So that's corporate money coming out. And then she became an assistant to John Laurinaitis, who allegedly there was also a sexual relationship there. So there's a lot going on with this. What I want to ask you, Todd, is where do you think this leads to as far as Vince McMahon being part of and a representation of WWE?
Well, I mean, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. Look, all the board, from what I can ascertain, all the board are really worried about is the money that actual WWE paid the company. Like if you want to have a relationship with someone and then afterwards they go, well, if you don't pay me X amount of dollars, I'm going to go public about this, and then you pay them out of your own money, that's your business. So I think it's mainly just like how much money did the actual WWE corporate pay for these girls to go away is more.
Yeah, that's an important factor of it, is that this money wasn't necessarily Vince McMahon's money. There's an investigation as to how much of it is coming from the WWE corporate accounts to pay for these.
And I'd be interested to know if it was like some of this money was paid before he went public, because if it went paid before he went public, that's still just his money.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I don't know if they're just going to try and weather the storm until this thing blows over and he can go back to just staying. I think his days as being the chief executive are done. I can't see him ever going back to that position. I also can't see him like willingly stepping away from like creative, which means stepping away from WWE completely. I mean, that's like Charlton Heston, pry this from my cold dead hands type deal, I think. Anyway.
Well, let's dig into those 2 points. So first off, talking about the CEO position, that has been taken currently by Stephanie McMahon. Whether that is a long-term solution or a short-term solution, we don't know. What we do know is that this comes pretty soon after Stephanie had said that she was stepping away to focus on other things like family. We're unsure if there is the potential that Stephanie was aware of some of this information becoming public. And it was a coordinated effort to make sure that someone outside of the WWE system was able to step in to take Vince's place as CEO. Do you think having Stephanie McMahon as the chief executive changes anything about the way the company operates?
Oh, probably not, but I don't know. It's like, because it looks like they're trying, there's certain stuff that they are trying to change, if that makes sense. Like Triple H has gone back to being in, like, working with NXT, not working with, like, as he used to work with, but sort of like guiding that area of the business. I don't know. Like, for all we know, she just could be a puppet, and it's just Vince going, "This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing." We don't know. And in other words, it could just be like, well, she could just be like, Vince going, "We should do this," and well, we could, but you're just creative now. I'm in charge, and this is what we're doing. We don't know.
And that's the other factor, right? Vince is still head of creative. He's in charge of making all the decisions as far as storylines go. He's still in the gorilla position, speaking into the ears of the commentators. So as far as the on-screen product, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of changes. Now, there have been reports over the past couple of days about a potential move in the future to a TV 14 rating, moving away from a TV PG rating. But as that story's developed, it seemed like that is more investigating for a potential future change rather than anything that's coming in the near future. Todd, do you think that would be a good change? Is that something that you're hoping for?
Look, PG, TV 14, it doesn't matter as long as the stories are actually good. If they follow through on their stuff, it doesn't matter what you can be rated as. I mean, there's R18 shows that you go to locally that are really good, and there are R18 shows that you go to that are really bad. It doesn't matter the rating. Like, you could love an all ages show more than you would like an R18 show, just for the way it's booked. It's not what they do. And nowadays, I think it would be harder to do you couldn't do an Attitude Era type promotion nowadays. You just couldn't in this climate. So I don't know that it makes anything more than changing a narrative for a while.
And you and I are on exactly the same page with that one, Todd. There's all these talks of PG, blah, blah, blah. But if you look over at, let's take what AEW is doing, because they don't have that PG restriction on them. But a lot of the times, some of the things that we don't like so much about AEW are freedoms given to them by not having that PG rating. We've talked about how often they are just bleeding for absolutely no reason on a Wednesday night, right? Mm-hmm. PG means that that's not happening. We still see blood in the WWE occasionally. Do I think that blood could be used more effective to make some things more effective? Yeah, I do. But I want to see it sparing. And at the moment it is, so I think that there's a lot of narrative around the idea of WWE being PG that doesn't necessarily correlate with the quality of the show.
Yeah, I honestly think at the moment, this story has been floated out to just try and change the tone of what's going on now, with especially when what was her name, Rita Chatterton came out and was talking a little bit about what happened with her back in the 80s, I think it was. I can't remember when it was. With
former
her, with
WWE referee.
Yeah, with her as well. So, I mean, if anything, it took Vince off the front page for a little while to talk, they're going back to Attitude Era type TV 14. Do you know what I mean? That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, they get a headline out there in the wrestling news that isn't about Vince being an absolute grub. But look, let's move on to what's actually going on narratively. And as far as the in-ring product goes in the world of WWE, we've got SummerSlam coming up. One of the big events of the year. So the card is coming together for a July 31st show, 2 weeks away as we're recording this. So let's look at the card so far. For the undisputed WWE Universal Championship, there's going to be a last man standing match with Roman Reigns once again coming up against Brock Lesnar as a perennial opponent. We've got the SmackDown Women's Champion Liv Morgan, after newly winning that title at Money in the Bank, defending against former champion Ronda Rousey. There's going to be a grudge match between Happy Corbin and Pat McAfee, a United States Championship match with Bobby Lashley defending against Theory, and a match for the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championship between the Usos and the Street Profits with special guest referee Jeff Jarrett. Which of these matches immediately stands out to you, Todd?
Jesus. probably, if anything, Pat McAfee and Corbin, just because I like Pat McAfee. I think he's great. I will say, I think the Brock Lesnar thing was obviously because like Randy's injured. I think that was the direction they were originally going to go, and they've had to pull an emergency thing with this. I don't know why they couldn't have just like worked out so Riddle could have done this whole thing the whole way. I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they didn't just go with it, unless there's obviously some other plans going ahead, or maybe it was even Cody and who knows? Who knows what the actual plans were? I'm pretty sure they were never Brock Lesnar though.
No. It seems really wild to just have almost an exact rematch of what the WrestleMania main event was from 6 months ago. You know what I mean?
I do think they will see. I do think they will see Nakamura and Gunther get put on this card, which will be a match that's a match you want to be watching.
Yeah. Looking at SummerSlam as a show, if you look back, currently we've got 5 matches that I've just talked about there. SummerSlam last year had 11. And often SummerSlam is seen as, at least in my perception, it's kind of the WrestleMania for the more hardcore fans, right? WrestleMania is the big event that gets everyone in. SummerSlam is the big event for people who always watch. It has these huge matches. So things like, Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar is going to main event a lot of cards, but I think that they do have a tendency to try to put on the kind of matches that please people like us, the more hardcore fans. Yeah. If we think about it last year, it was Roman Reigns and John Cena having that match at SummerSlam as the main event, right?
Yeah. I just mentioned like Shinsuke and Gunther. There'll also probably be Jake Paul and The Miz. They'll also, you know what I mean? Like just stuff that hasn't been named as of yet. Just those sort of things. I mean, you look at, like looking back at it, like if I said to you, the problem is, we've seen Usos and Street Profits a million times. It'll be a great match, but I've seen it a million times every Monday night.
Yep.
Theory and Lashley, again, we've been seeing it over the last while. So it's something like, and I don't have to say about Brock and Roman. They're just, I think they're exhausting ideas of how to keep these guys wanting to beat each other's asses with what they've been doing. Like, if anything, they've been trying to like swerve people from thinking about Brock and Roman by having Theory sort of fight with the Usos and Sami Zayn. Yeah, that's kind of what they've been doing. So they don't have to keep, because what do you keep saying for these two when they keep coming up against each other? Like, how do you keep that story going when it's always just sort of like the one way? It's always sort of like Roman winning. It's a very hard thing to keep going like that. Liv Morgan, though, like hopefully she gets a good win against Ronda to really cement her as the champion, because she's been doing great things since she's won that belt.
She's been doing great things for months. We talked about, at WrestleMania how great she was doing. I'm thrilled that they chose for her to win Money in the Bank and to take that title. I think it was an absolutely great choice.
I will say
she gets a signature win.
I will say I was really scared that she wasn't going to win that.
Yeah.
When she came out to cash it in, I thought, don't have her lose it. Come on. So, and that another thing I will add is pay-per-views on a Saturday or a Sunday for Australia. That's awesome. Keep the pay-per-views on Saturday nights in America.
I want
all
it
the
forever.
time. Like AEW, I think AEW are doing it with Ring of Honor.
Yeah,
it's going to be on a Sunday, which is great. That's for us anyway. As we go, it's great for us because we actually get to
watch it live.
Yeah, we actually get to watch it live for those who work anyway.
Yeah, that's right. And we don't just get, a ping on our phone from a mate sending us like, this person just won the title. And like, great.
Yeah, and you're like, go on, get a job, dude. You're killing me.
That's that's exactly it. Now, just one that I wanted to check with you is the only you've mentioned that we think we'll see the Gunther Shinsuke for the Intercontinental title. The only title then that won't be represented on the card with that locked in would be the Raw Women's Championship held by Bianca Belair. So there's a few potential options for an opponent there. Is there anyone that you would have in mind for that spot?
Unless Rhea comes back somehow. And that's a story we didn't add either, because we don't actually know what's going on with Rhea Ripley.
No,
like she had a
Rhea
heart
Ripley
monitor on the other day, and there's apparently some concussion issues as well, and we haven't really been given an actual story about what's going on with her. It's just that she was pulled from the card, and then like social media photos.
We know that Rhea Ripley is out with injury, and the direct kind of thing that we saw from her pre that injury, there was a very nasty video you can track down where basically she had a kind of a forward roll as part of taking a move, and her leg just managed to connect with the rope and sent her own knee straight into her face. And we know that led to some dental issues and potentially a concussion there. But as far as other things that could have been creeping up over the past however many years, because she hasn't really had much or any time off for injury since, if you think way back through, she was on that pandemic WrestleMania, and before that in NXT where she was at the top of that card. So she's been working for a while without a break. Hopefully she is fit and healthy soon, and there's not too much going on that we don't know about. I think
here's a question for you, because we haven't really covered it at all. Is Dominic going to turn on Ray?
I have the longer they drag it out, the less I care about it.
Yeah.
Which to me almost indicates that it's exactly what they're going to do, because that's very WWE of them, right? It always felt like Dominic turning on Ray was the story. That was what was eventually going to happen. But they've been slow burn building that story for so long that it seems to have lost all the relevance. If it happens, there's just going to be no impact there. Do I still think it'll happen? Yeah, I do. I think that WWE, we know that Vince is not a tag team guy. He really doesn't care about tag teams. And historically, when you get two guys in a tag team, the storyline they build to is the tag team breaking up, right? And then becoming singles guys. And I don't see Ray turning on Dominic. I don't see them not taking advantage of the story where the two of them go against each other. Dominic's going to turn on Ray eventually, but I think it's going to be too little too late.
Yeah, it's sort of hard, because like originally I thought they were going to do something like have like Rhea. I know almost called him Punishment Martinez after how long has he been?
Yeah. And now you've said it, I can only think of Punishment
Martinez. Yeah, I know.
Think of his name.
Like
he's in the Finn Balor stable. Right?
Yeah, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, and Rhea Ripley.
Damian Priest.
I thought it was going to be against like Ray, Dominic, and then returning Edge. Mm-hmm. And that's when Dominic turns on to, because then you've got Ray and Edge together. Yep. They can do a little thing where they're both trying to, do you know what I mean? Sort of thing. But I just don't know what's going on.
We've also been seeing promos on WWE for what seems to be a clear Edge return, where there's been creepy videos with items of people that Edge has had signature feuds with in the past. So glasses from the Dudleys and Hardy arm straps and John Cena merch and all that kind of
cactus
stuff.
Shirt.
Yeah. To me, this seems like a response to the amount of injuries they've got on the card right now. I think that Edge was going to be off TV for much longer in the original plan. But now that there's been the number of people taken off television that we've got, it wouldn't surprise me if they are kind of desperate to get more big names on the card and have asked Edge to come back earlier than anticipated, would be my guess there. But again, it's impossible to know the inner workings of the company, anyone's guess. But yeah, I think that could be a really interesting story. One of the things I loved from that group is that Finn showed his heel turn by wearing pants instead of briefs. Just hiding that bulge behind a pair of pants. That's a heel turn if I've ever seen one. So there you go. Yeah, look, there's plenty more news to talk about, plenty in the world of AEW and the wider wrestling world that we need to discuss. So we'll do that right after this break.
Day pod.
You know who else is that guy?
Oh,
You know what that guy does? That guy sits in the middle and uses both armrests.
oh,
Full
bro.
spread. Full spread. That's that guy.
Okay,
That's that guy.
right. If you take a plane, right? If you're in a plane, don't take a plane. If you're in a plane,
Yeah, don't take a plane. Bro, don't
and
like
you're in the
advice.
middle, and you use both, you are scum. You are scum. You don't get those armrests. Wait.
Come on. Come on. I'm a little with you. Wait, what?
No, the middle guy definitely gets those armrests.
Both of them?
Yes.
Full spread?
Yes.
I don't know, man.
No, okay, sorry. No, because I saw a meme about this. I retract everything I just said. I'm flopping right now.
Follow Broday No Plan B podcast on Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Making Chicken Salad. We've got plenty to talk about on the AEW side of the fence, so let's jump over there. First off, Adam Cole will not be having surgery to repair a torn labrum. He's been out of action since Forbidden Door with a concussion, but he'd also been working through a shoulder injury. According to a report from Fightful, he's been dealing with the torn labrum since his title program with Hangman Page. That was back in March and April. Obviously a fairly big name to have out with those injuries. It's good to hear that he won't require surgery from that. How does he fit into this huge list of people that's injured? And yeah, how do you see him coming back into the AEW picture?
I don't know. Like I don't know what they're planning. Like the way it sounds too, like Bryan Danielson's just being held out for reasons at the moment until Tony thinks that he's good to go again, which is the exact thing that how long ago was I saying about like he didn't like the fact he was being held back by WWE from doing all this stuff. Now it seems like, you know what I mean? It seems
Yep.
like this is what's happening again
Same
because it's for his
situation
own,
at AEW.
for his own good. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's a smart move to not just get the labrum repaired, like, and try and like just work through it. So I don't know how that, I don't know what the extent of the injury is. If it's one of those ones that will repair itself over time and you just need to, or what it is. I hope he's taking care of himself.
Yeah, absolutely. You want him to be healthy no matter what. But and obviously, you know, that's going to come down to conversations with doctors and with the people involved with those things, because surgery comes with risks. And, you know, if it is going to repair itself, then you may not want to go down the surgery route. But then if you go back into wrestling, then does that agitate it? It's difficult to know from an outside view. And it's probably difficult to know even if you're Adam Cole, right? So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. But it's also the fact that, like, you've got all of these guys that are out, and then you've got MJF who's out for not injury reasons. He's just out. It really does make that Dynamite a different show.
Oh, yeah. Let's jump into talking about MJF quickly, because, you know, we haven't had a chance to talk about much of this storyline. Obviously, he got beaten with a series of power bombs, courtesy of Wardlow, and it hasn't been seen since. Do you?
Well, he was
think
seen the
this
next
is-
night.
He was there the next night, but has disappeared since then. Do you think this is a work around his contract? Do you think there's genuinely still things going on about his contract? Where do you think this is at?
It's probably 100% of work.
Yeah. No question in my mind.
Yeah, like I think originally it wasn't, and then it got resolved, and so now it's. Do you know what I mean? Like it's now let's make this a story, and we all know that MJF is very fade, so he won't be telling anyone what's going on, and having everyone believe what they want them to believe, which is great. I'm not in any way doing it. It's I just think that we all know Tony has a way of wanting to cycle through guys. So he gives guys certain times off and then like brings them back in. I don't know if the MJF's the guy that you want to do that with just because of how good he is. And like he's young too. So I mean,
Oh,
but it's
so young.
Yeah, but it's also like, because I don't even know if Jungle Boy's legitimately injured or if he's just being rested for a while they build up
Or if he's
Christian
working that, yeah.
while they're building up Christian and Luchasaurus, which is what do you think of that, by the way?
I think Christian is doing some of the best work of his career once again. I'm loving all the promos Christian's cutting. The problem is that it's one of those things where I don't feel like there's going to be payoff because Christian is kind of at the front of it. Luchasaurus is just his muscle, but he can still work. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want to see a one-on-one match where Christian gets his mouth shut. You know what I mean? I feel like, you know, and not to bring you into this, Todd, but I think you're a perfect comparison there. When you're out doing that managing stuff, those are the kind of promos that you're cutting, and it makes the crowd hate you, and it means that it only takes one good hit for everyone to go, yes, Todd got what's coming to him. Christian Cage, Christian, whatever you want to call him, at the moment, is in a position where he's theoretically a worker on the card, so he's going to take hits all the time. So you have to see him get absolutely put down for the kinds of things that he's saying in order for it to feel cathartic. But he's also, as good as he is, he's older. He's not going to be able to take a power bomb through 3 tables or whatever it is that makes you feel like he got his comeuppance. So,
but also his gimmick is at the moment. His gimmick at the moment is that he doesn't work. That's like that. The whole thing, like when he first came in, it was like outwork everyone, and now it's like outworked everyone.
Yep.
So it's like
not working and slept with your mum.
Yeah,
like that's the gimmick.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much. So I mean, it could, like, I can see where they can build up to a point where like having a match with him and like when he finally gets his hands on him, then it'll be great. Like you're not going to get that one big pop like you were saying, like when like if I talk and I eventually get, you're not going to get that one big pop, but you're going to get that landmark victory for Jungle Boy when he beats someone that is a future Hall of Famer in Christian. So there will be that payoff. Absolutely. So there is that. It's a different type of thing.
Yeah, I also I think that there's a huge future for Luchasaurus, and I'm hoping that this actually does benefit him long term. My concern is that it's just going to make Luchasaurus look like, you know, more of an extra person rather than someone who can really work. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I do like the fact that over the last 6 to 8 months, maybe even a year, they've stopped him talking.
Yeah.
Like he used to do that whole, like, I'm a dinosaur, but he was sort of like educated.
Yeah.
Whereas now they've sort of just reverted him back to just and all that sort of stuff. And I don't mind that for him. I think that's good for him.
Yeah.
Like that keeps and the whole heel thing is working for him now.
And I think as much as possible, you want to, you know, lean into the fact that he is, you know, the Undersnaker, right? Like that's what everyone was calling him on the indies as a joke, was because he was this big creepy dude with a snake mask on who looked kind of like the Undertaker. Okay, Undersnaker, done. You want him to be that intimidating figure. So yeah, I think that's the way to go. Speaking of people I love who are getting their due in AEW, Swerve Strickland is now one half of the AEW World Tag Team Champions, along with Keith Lee, winning the titles as part of Fyter Fest. I love a lot of what was going on there. I love everything involved. Look, Stokely Hathaway is money as far as I'm concerned. So when he's cutting promos about Swerve, it's brilliant. What do you think of Swerve in their glory as the new tag champions?
Honestly, I don't like it. For the fact that it's that WWE thing. Let's put 2 singles guys together and then give them a tag belt. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like they tagged, but how long did they tag for before they got that title? Whereas you've had guys that have been legitimately working as tag teams and working like for a long time now. Like you've got like the Acclaimed.
Yeah.
LAX never really got a thing, and it looks like they're breaking up now because of reasons behind the scenes. There's so many actual legitimate tag teams that they could like use, but like Private Party are now like a job team. When they first came in, they were the guys that beat the Bucks. So like I understand what they've done with it. Like I understand what they're doing this thing, but they already had a storyline where they were sort of like in the outs. Like, could they trust each other? Are they going to turn on each other? They had that. They didn't need that. Doesn't need those belts to help them along with that story. If that makes sense to you.
Sure. I'm going to disagree with that on, I totally get what you're saying. For me, when we've got all those tag teams that it feels like aren't being built properly, right? You've got a lot of the established teams right now are off working with the Ring of Honor titles because they're held by FTR, who are clearly the best tag team, right? There's no argument there. You've got the Young Bucks working with them, doing ladder stuff, and then that gets turned into triple threat. And you can add in whoever. And if, you've got teams like the Lucha Brothers and they can go and fight off for that. So when we've got these teams like the Acclaimed or whatever, those teams will benefit from beating people who are established names, right? And as much as established names in the tag team division works, established singles names can make a title feel strong. When you've got Keith Lee in the title history for these AEW tag titles, it makes it feel like good wrestlers can come together to win these belts. But then you get to tell the story of, look, these two guys are singles wrestlers, a tag team that is on the same page can beat them, and it means that they're pinning Keith Lee or they're pinning Swerve Strickland, right? And that's something important. I do agree that I feel like, look, the argument that there's people being underutilized in AEW is something we've been saying forever.
Yeah.
If Strickland and Lee didn't have the tag titles, where would they be? Would they be wrestling on Dark? I feel like Shane Strickland would be on Dark, honestly. And I love Shane Strickland. I think that if you go back, the one that I always talk about is him and AR Fox in Hell of War in Lucha Underground. That match was insane. The guy's absolute world class, but the top of AEW is so stacked. I don't think it's got space for Swerve Strickland.
Yeah. Well, that's like you've got guys at the moment, like on Dark, that are doing storylines and that nobody even knows about. Like Ari Daivari is now he's called like Avi or something. And he's got a whole storyline where his trust fund is paid off and he's rich. And so he's built himself a stable. And they just brought in Parker Boudreaux on this last set of tapings. And one of the guys from, I don't know what they're called in NXT, the Mafia type gimmick. That Two Dimes. Yeah, he debuted on Dark as well. So you got all of these guys that is just pretty much they're in the same, if not worse, position when they were in the WWE, but they get to do their indie dates. It's just I don't know what they're doing. Like they have they've got the deepest tag division in wrestling. They just do.
Yep.
And to put it on two singles guys, I think discredits all those guys that are working in tags. Like you said, Lucha Bros. You've got the Silver and bloody Reynolds, a great tag team. You got the Butcher and the Blade. You got, I think I already said Lucha Bros. That's your team. You got the Acclaimed. You got the Ass Boys. There's so many tag teams. And I understand you saying what would those two be doing if they weren't doing this? That's Tony's problem. That's not the other tag team's problem.
Yep.
That's the reason why you hardly see Miro on TV anymore.
Yeah. And even stories that seem like they're taking up a big chunk of time, like Hookhausen, you're not seeing Hookhausen. There's a million and one other things that they're getting done.
Yeah, Best Friends. There's another tag team that they
Yeah.
could be doing stuff. And they split
But
them up for like a
instead,
month
Best
so
Friends-
that Roppongi could get back together for a little bit.
Yep, and then Best Friends show up so that they can be ringside for an Orange Cassidy match.
Yeah.
Right?
And then
It's like,
and Hookhausen isn't even a thing anymore.
yeah. After they spent all that time doing that story, like it's anyway, look,
Sorry.
as part of this
Sidetracking.
AEW conversation, let's talk about Death Before Dishonor, which is a Ring of Honor pay-per-view that's coming up in about a week on July 23rd. So there's going to be a Ring of Honor World Championship match with Jonathan Gresham defending against Claudio Castagnoli. We've got a 2 out of 3 falls.
Oh, Jonathan
match.
Gresham too just turned heel this past week with Tully Blanchard. So he's got Tully Blanchard as his manager, which is cool.
Yep. And that was there was a whole lot going on, and you could see he actually pulled out of the Australian tour that he was going to be on in order to do that on AEW TV. So that's interesting. That feels like they definitely want to make him a bit of a showpiece there, where they're pulling him from those dates. There's going to be a 2 out of 3 falls match for the tag team championships between the Briscoes and FTR, which what more can you say?
Let's just print money now, shall we?
Yeah, everyone's going to be watching that match. If you're not watching that match and you're listening to this podcast, why are you listening to this podcast? Like,
Yeah.
that's if you like wrestling, watch that match. There's going to be a Women's World Championship match between Mercedes Martinez and Serena Deeb, which should be a cracker. The Ring of Honor Television Championship is going to be defended by Samoa Joe against Jay Lethal. And the Pure Championship is going to be defended by Wheeler Yuta against Daniel Garcia.
Which is the guy that should be in the Blackpool Combat Club against the guy that is in Blackpool Combat Club.
But look, I'm feeling really vindicated right now, because as much as we're talking a little bit of smack about Wheeler Yuta, I feel like every show more people are on the Wheeler Yuta bandwagon, and I've been saying it since Dojo Pro that the guy's got it. I think
He's
that
bland. He is so bland. Like give him a couple of dollars so he can hire a personality.
I like him. I don't know what it is. I like him.
I was going to say, what is it that you like about him?
I don't know.
Is it that he looks like someone from Star Trek who wrestles?
I wonder if it's the fact that I feel like I've seen him come up from the bottom. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that if I wasn't in that situation, if I wasn't, watching Ring of Honor 5 years ago when he was greener than grass, I don't know if I would be attached to him, honestly. So yeah, I don't know.
I just find him devoid of personality. I really do.
But look, in the same breath, the fact that Daniel Garcia is not in Blackpool Combat Club blows my mind. He's just seems like the obvious slot there. But speaking of Ring of Honor, they're also revamping the Honor Club program with some enhanced stuff. During the transformation, there's going to be a pause on new memberships coming in. But basically in early fall 2022. So that's going to be start of spring here in a couple of months. You'll be able to subscribe for that classic price of $9.99 a month. And there's going to be new Honor Club content available 60 days after the live events. What do you think of a 60-day delay subscription period there, Todd?
Well, if they're doing the pay-per-views, it makes sense. It makes all the sense in the world. I find it interesting that they're getting a service like this before AEW actually is.
Yep.
Especially with all the old content that they have for Ring of Honor. I don't know why you wouldn't fold both of them together.
I wonder if it's a testing ground, right? Because Honor Club in some form already existed. You've got some frameworks there that you can.
But that functionality for that was terrible. Like I had it for a while and I couldn't find the shows I wanted to watch. It wasn't the best.
I worked through it to watch a bunch of old Daniel Bryan stuff. I was on a Danielson kick, and you had to fight against that system to see the wrestling you wanted to see.
I was trying to find. There's one match I've been trying to find for the longest time, and I can't even remember what the bloody thing was called now. Like the stipulation of the match was called now, but it was Adam Cole against Chris Hero. There was like a 3 falls match, but there was different stipulations for every fall. And like the last stip was like a Iron Man match or something like that. I can't remember. But when I watched it the first time, I fucking loved it. And I cannot find it again to watch it.
You telling me it was like a 3 stages of hell match, but stage 3 was Iron Man?
Yeah, but it was like there was different rules going into it. I can't remember what it was. You keep talking and I'll see if I can find it while we're doing this.
Look, you and I are going to track that one down later because I've got to watch that. Look, let's talk about a different news item here. Going out of the big 2, Michael Elgin, someone who a lot of people may know from working in New Japan, has reportedly been arrested while in Japan. Cassidy Haynes of Bodyslam.net has reported he was arrested last weekend for stealing protein powder, and he's remained in jail since. The report noted that Elgin could face up to 5 years in jail. He was on tour with Pro Wrestling Noah at the time, where he was one half of the GHC Tag Team Championships with Kitamiya. On July 9th, Noah announced that Elgin would be unable to compete in an upcoming card. On the 12th, they announced that he would also miss the Budokan Hall event set for July 16, and the titles were vacated as a result. Look, I've made no secret about the fact that I don't like Michael Elgin very much. Range of things going into that, but mostly I just feel everything he does is done as well or better by other wrestlers in a more interesting way. Michael Elgin to me is basically the most generic wrestler you can get. And is he bad? No, he's fine in the ring. But when you've got someone who is fine in the ring, has a totally generic personality, does not have a particularly unique look, and has the history that he has, because this jail sentence is not the first time that Elgin has been called out for doing something untoward, I just can't get behind Elgin. Especially when in his spot in all of those Japanese promotions, the guy that you could slot straight in there was Jeff Cobb, who's someone that I think consistently has shown to be so much more interesting doing the same style, right? And he's doing it now in United Empire, showing that he can be really interesting while being that power figure and hitting, Tour of the Islands is one of my favorite moves in the world. Todd, how was my vamping?
It was good. It was called the Ringmaster Challenge match.
Ringmaster Challenge match. There we go. So I will be watching that later when I can track it down. Any thoughts on Elgin?
You're completely all I know is that he seems to have worked his way from being the man in ROH to someone with a massive future to someone who was on tours of Noah. You know what I mean? It seems like a hell of a fall for a guy. And the only reason that could happen is because maybe you're just not the best person behind the scenes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not easy. Perfect example is Davey Richards, who is an amazing worker.
A great wrestler.
And for a long time there was just, I know he left because he was doing his, I think he was a paramedic. He was studying to be a paramedic. But it feels like now he's come back, he's sort of not the same.
It definitely feels like the reason that he left was because no one would take him.
Yeah.
Right? That's where I've felt. Look, let's go past news. We've been talking about, people with futures. We've been talking about going back and watching old things. We need to catch up on the last episode that we did. There was a That's Debatable.
Yes, there was.
And I should say last episode, we had the results of a That's Debatable.
Yes.
And the result was I lost and I was forced to watch Juggalo Championship Wrestling Legends and Icons. So if you'll indulge me here,
Oh, certainly.
I have written down my notes. You may be able to see here, I have 8 pages of notes that I made while watching this absolute train wreck of a shit show of a show. And if I had to spend 3 hours of my life watching Juggalo Pro Wrestling, wheel out the oldest men I've ever seen in my life and put them in a wrestling ring, you guys can tolerate me yakking for 10 minutes with my notes. Verbatim. I'll read exactly what I've written.
Oh, okay.
All right. The first thing I wrote, and this is related to me doing board game streams. I said, last week on stream, I had the microphones in the wrong ports and I kept turning up myself because the person I was streaming with was too quiet. So I kept just making myself louder and them quieter because I had the wrong mics plugged in. And even that audio was better than this commentary's audio. Then I've got written down, Greg Valentine looks like he taped a Christmas ham to each tit. If there's one thing juggalos are known for, it's balloon arches, which is what they had over the entranceway. Giant balloon arch. That's what I think of when I think of juggalos. Greg Valentine, the first note about the actual match I've got, he is already bleeding. So hopefully, oh, never mind, it's over. This was my introduction. Man, these matches did not last very long. Greg Valentine was bleeding immediately, and then it was done. The match went a total of 100 seconds, and both the wrestlers and the ref were gassed. So that was exciting. Then there was a delay, and they were off air, and Mick Foley and the commentary guy vamped on commentary for honestly 15 minutes of just sitting there talking. And then there was a rumble. And, you know, a rumble's great because you get to have all these exciting moments. Like when your first 2 entrants are Jim Duggan and Headbanger Mosh. I tell you what, that's how to get a crowd invested in a rumble match, is have Headbanger Mosh be one of the first 2 entrants.
Although I will say, in defense, really nice guy.
Oh, Headbangers were actually, when we saw them live, so good. I totally wasn't expecting it. Really got the crowd in. I blown away by the Headbangers every time I see him, actually. Ronnie Garvin showed up to wrestle and was literally wearing a t-shirt and jeans. The commentary quote was, Carlito is probably the youngest person in the ring right now. All right, brother, he's the youngest on the card by a decade and a half. Then Jimmy Supercrime Snooker is there. And then Tony Atlas came out, and I wrote down, do you think Tony Atlas got stood on by a juggalette at the show? Big Daddy V was there.
He came out because Superfly was there without any shoes on.
Big Daddy V, I said he looks better here than he did for his whole last WWE run, actually, but I guess that would be hard not to. I said Rob Conway wrestling Carlito is the first time so far this has looked like a wrestling show. On the way out, Mick Foley decided he was doing a gimmick where everyone who got eliminated, he would interview them on the way up. And Tony Atlas grabbed a mic to say that this is the greatest wrestling show in the world. So I guess that 4 or 5 juggalettes stood on him. Then Zach Gowen came out, and I said, I remember him. Neat. Then on commentary, they told us that Bloody Mania 5 would be on tomorrow night on pay-per-view for only $5. And at a price like that, you know it's going to be quality. Zach Gowen's artificial leg got ripped off. I was absolutely shocked. I never thought that would happen in a wrestling ring. Doink the Clown came out. I said, surely the Juggalos love Doink. But Matt Bourne, I don't like seeing Matt Bourne. You know, that was there. I also fucking hate the Eugene gimmick, and Eugene was there. Fucking hate that. Then I wrote down, I literally can't think of something to say about Disco Inferno. I said, why do I have to look at Brutus Beefcake's 55-year-old nipples with rings in them? Look, the final entrant was Rikishi. I always pop for Rikishi. We love a bit of Rikishi. Midnight Express versus Rock and Roll Express. I Googled it. Both teams at the time of filming were older than the country of Australia. So that's how they're putting those matches together. And in the time it took me to type that note, the match finished. I said at their age, look, I'm actually glad to see that. That's not too bad. Terry Funk cut a promo about the movie They Live, which he was clearly having so much fun doing. Terry Funk can get me invested in paint drying. The man's a god on the mic. Even though he talks like this, he makes you believe what he's saying. Mick Foley clarifying that Sabu has never actually participated in a genocide was my favorite commentary note of the show. And then I said, actually, my highlight so far is commentary guys constantly reinforcing that it's only one or two bad apples throwing things into the ring. Mostly everyone here is very respectful, we promise. I asked why Too Cold Scorpio was never a big deal, because he showed up and could actually work, which blew me away. Mick Foley would literally rather reenact Vince saying, I have no balls for the 5th time in one night than pay attention to this absolute shit show that's going on in front of him. Bob Backlund came out to the ring, and then it got commentary pointed out that it was 3 a.m. at time of recording. What the fuck? And he came out to fight Ken Patera, who literally hadn't walked through the curtain yet before Mick Foley started talking about McDonald's. I asked why Backlund is moving better before this match at 60 odd years old than the entirety of the rest of the show up to that point. Backlund is a freak. Harvard steps, baby. Wow, that man can move. I said Backlund is the second hardest worker here right now, right after my antidepressants. I wrote down, I've never actually seen Dutch Mantel wrestle. It's a shame that I'm about to see it. Coco Beware had a hat that looked like a bird. I literally don't even know what my opinion on that is. His hat's a bird. I'm losing my fucking mind watching this wrestling show. I said, wow, Austin Idol is here. I want to not be watching this anymore. Tracy Smothers versus Tommy Rich is literally just the opener again, but somehow shorter. They did the same finish, but in under a minute. Then there was Outlaws versus Kevin Nash and X-Pac. It got Vampiro as a special guest referee for some reason, but I get at least that's an actual juggalo who was there. And it was kind of a match, credit where credit's due. It was bad, but it did go like 5 minutes. So that's something. And then Funk versus Piper was going to be the main event. And then Bob Orton and Mick Foley got added to it to make it a tag match. And then the final note I've got here is, thank fuck this is over. It was... I've watched some atrocious shit. You made me watch Legends of Wrestling, and that was bad. This was worse. There was literally a moment where I fell asleep watching it, and I almost cried realizing that I had to rewind to watch more of it again because I'd missed it. Absolutely tragic.
You're welcome.
So look, next time that's debatable is on, I am going so hard because I need that win. I need to not do that again. Yeah, so look, there's plenty for us to talk about in the history of bad stuff in wrestling and good stuff in wrestling. So with that in mind, we'll be back with our chicken salad and chicken shit for the week right after this. Welcome back to Making Chicken Salad. We are here to talk about exactly what the title is, our chicken shit and our chicken salad for this past couple of months since I've been on here. We talk about something that we really loved from the world of wrestling recently and something that we really didn't. Let's get the negative out of the way first. Todd, is there something you haven't enjoyed recently in wrestling?
I haven't. Oh, geez, what just happened there? I think my headphones are going dead. So, sorry about that. It scared the shit out of me. I loved the whole putting the Gun Club and the Acclaim together, the Sesame Daddy ass. That was great. It was so good. They cut it short way too soon. I understand what they've done, and it has, in some respects, really made Acclaim a babyface tag team. But they could have worked a way to have all 4 of these guys as babyface tag teams. And I just think they've cut it off way too short. I think it had so much more legs on it that they could have done. So that's pretty much what my chicken shit is at the moment. They could have got a lot more out of that, I think.
Yeah, definitely agree. It was very fun while it lasted. Shame that we're not going to see more of it. Look, for me, I'm also going to complain about a little bit of AEW stuff that I just feel like is a big wasted opportunity as well. And that is the booking of United Empire so far. Now, Will Ospreay has been winning matches, but he has been... It took everything he had to beat Orange Cassidy, the comedy guy. We've seen Aussie Open come in and lose consistently, right? This should be the big heel faction right now, and they're just not being shown to be a threat. They should be the biggest threat in this company, coming in internationally and tearing it apart, and they're just not. They're just some more people who are there who we're supposed to not like. Yeah, really not a fan of that. I feel like it's a massive wasted opportunity there. I might take my chicken salad first, if you don't mind, Todd.
Go for it, my son.
A company that I have mentioned before as really, they seem like the biggest little guys to me at the moment. A company that's putting on just incredibly good stuff out of a small promotion. That's Warrior Wrestling from Chicago. These guys are, you may have seen that they've got a very distinctive belt that for a long time had been worn by Will Ospreay, with like a kind of like faceplate of like a Roman centurion's armor on it. And it seems like every show, they're just putting on absolute top quality stuff. And the title at one of their recent shows was a big War of Attrition match, which was huge. And it had Ospreay defending against, I've just brought the list up, Brian Cage, Casey Navarro, Brian Pillman Jr., Jake Something, Jeff Cobb, Lance Archer, Sam Adonis, and Swerve Strickland in one huge banger of a match. Like, if you want to see crazy indie chaos, this is it. And the choice they made at the end of it to put the title on, out of all those names, KC Navarro, a local guy, gets the big underdog victory. It feels amazing. He takes the title off Ospreay. They've got a built-in path to Ospreay having a big story with him later. He ended up defending it the next show against Brian Pillman Jr., who should be in those spots. He's a perfect person to be a challenger for the title against the local underdog. They're putting on matches like Davey Richards versus Tom Lawler. This company is just putting on really, really cool stuff. And I really wanted to give a shout out to Warrior Wrestling, because I think that, for a little Chicago company that is having shows in what appears to be some kind of school hall, it's going excellent for me. They put their last show on at Malcolm X College in Chicago. So these tiny little buildings, and they are putting on absolute world-class stuff. So shouting out that.
GCW do that too. Some of their venues, you look at it and go, I can't believe that, like, our venue at Brolga is better than this venue. What the hell's going on?
Yeah, it's like, and they've got these tiny little venues, and they're putting on Jeff Cobb versus Jonah. Like, what the fuck? Makes you wish you lived in the US so you could just see incredible wrestling all the time. But, it is what it is. That they were also the company that put on Brooksy versus Warhorse.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah, so that's my recommendation. Check out Warrior Wrestling. What have you liked recently, Todd?
My one is actually from this past weekend, and it's worldwide, but it's also Australian. World Series Wrestling. One of the matches on the weekend was the Pereira against Brian Cage and Flip Gordon, where
the flipping machines.
Yes, whereas like apparently a lot of people are saying that this was very much a coming out party for the Pereira, who put on an absolute clinic with Cage and Gordon. I hope this leads to more, to be honest with you. Like, and if you've got Fight, and I think it's, if you have Fight Plus, it's free. The whole tour from this past weekend, and my headphones just went dead, so if I can't hear you right now, so there you go. It's probably the best you've sounded all day.
Todd's a fool. Absolutely.
Okay, one ear works. I can still hear that. So go fuck yourself. But yeah, that's what, like, go and track it down. The Pereira, a great tag team here in Australia. You would have seen them live. Like, I've seen them a few times because they're from where I was from in Adelaide, Wright City. You would have seen them for the first time probably at Pro Wrestling League. So you'll probably agree that they're a really good team.
Well, I have actually traveled interstate to see some of those World Series wrestling shows before. So I have seen the Pereira a few times and know exactly how good they are. And it's interesting, on the last World Series wrestling tour, it felt like there was a coming out party for the Natural Classics. They had tag team matches against the Flippin' Machines and against the Lucha Brothers and just blew people away. So that's one of the reasons I really love those shows, is they get to showcase just how good our Aussie talent is. And the Pereira are absolutely unbelievable. Always consistently incredible.
Yeah, like I don't want to get heat for it, but I truly believe that they are better than the Natural Classics because in ring I think they hold their own, but they also have a personality. If that like they have something about them, a gimmick about them, which they don't drop. They never drop that. They always stay in that persona. Like they rock up to shows 6 hours before the show time in like $1,000 suits. They are true professionals. And that's, So if you get a chance, track down that match. Do see it. Like I said, it's on, if you've got the Fight Plus subscription, it's free on that. So go and check it out. And big shout out to those boys. Did really, really well.
And another plug for, let's talk about the Pereira, but also talk about what we're doing here. If you are interested in more Pereira stuff, you can go back and check out some of the reviews we've done here on Making Chicken Salad, because we reviewed a Riot City Wrestling show where they defended tag team titles against Zach Sabbath and I can't remember his tag team partner's name, but
Mike Boomer.
Mike Boomer, thank you.
I was just going to leave you hanging.
Excellent match. I know you would. You're a jerk. So absolutely go back and check out those reviews where you can see all of the incredible Aussie talent that we've covered here on Wrestle Radio Australia.
Also on the Australian Wrestling Network is the latest Pro Wrestling League show as well. So go and check
can't go wrong checking that out. You can hear me yelling shit all show. It'll be great fun.
I just yelled shit for about 15, 20 minutes.
While you're checking stuff out, make sure you check out the subscribe button for Wrestle Radio Australia. Head on over to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts, hit subscribe. It's free. If you're on Apple Podcasts, especially, if you can leave a 5-star review, that's huge for getting the show into more ears. The socials, head on over to @WrestleRadioAU on Twitter and on Instagram to follow what we're doing. On Facebook, search for Wrestle Radio Australia. You'll find it there. Head on over to Redbubble if you want to check out some merch. Just search for Wrestle Radio Australia. We don't take a cut of those profits. They go to Gotcha for Life and Beyond Blue, to awesome charities supporting men's mental health here in Australia. Selfish plug, while you're on YouTube, go and subscribe to Vault Games. We'll be having some more content there more actively very soon. So that's exciting. Anything you want to say, Todd?
No, mate. Sorry, guys, that we've been away for a while. I'll be honest with you. A little bit of a dip in my mental health. So I just took a break. Hopefully we get around to do more of these shows because I forget how much fun I have when I actually do sit down to record these. So hopefully we get around to doing some more. I do know that Jeff said he wants to come on and talk about Renegades of Wrestling, so we'll probably have him on very soon to do that. So, but that's about it, really. Follow us, get around us, guys.
I'm excited to shoot the shit with Jeff for a bit as well. Haven't met him yet, so we'll see how that goes. But you're absolutely right. I've had a lot of stuff going on too, so we haven't been able to get stuff together. But it's always a pleasure talking to you, Todd. I always have more fun than I remember I do. So thank you, as always, everyone who is watching us and getting us those views. Thank you as well. We really appreciate it. So that's been Todd Eastman. I've been Lachlan Albert. Have a good one.